For the past 15 years, we've done custom stainless steel exhausts for a huge variety of vehicles, so you can imagine we've gotten some pretty unique requests. Today, we'll show you a more recent one that came directly from NASCAR.
Hey, this is Billy from Fluid MotorUnion, and today we are working on a 2012 Boss 302 Mustang. We are going to be changing about 80% of the exhaust on this car from basically the catalytic converters back. So this exhaust system showed up this morning from the owner. He bought it from a NASCAR race team in Concord, North Carolina, Roush Racing, and he wants us to put it on his car. So we mocked up the exhaust system, what we have, which is basically the two tail pieces to the exhaust, which are flat, not round. We have the standard X pipe they run in all stock cars, which normally would have went up to headers here. We're going to start up here with the cats. We're going to put new cats in it, bring it back, and then rebuild all of this to hit the NASCAR center section and rear section of this. So mocked it up to see what it would look like. If you'll notice over here that the tailpipes look really wider than the car. Well, a race car's sides come straight down for aerodynamics, where a street car radius is in. So being that we don't have the width of the stock car body on this, once we get this all mocked up exactly where we want it to be, we're going to mark the body line on the car. So we're probably going to have to cut about 4 inches off of this to get this to work. We're going to have to make, obviously, a street style exhaust hanger on a stock car. There's these tabs on here which bolt right up to the bottom of the chassis. There's not a whole lot of variations in a race car, whereas with a street car, the bottom of every car is different. So that's where we're going to start with this. The materials have been ordered, and hopefully in a couple of days here, we'll be able to give you all more of an update.
Now, before we begin any work, we're going to make sure that we're lifting the vehicle properly by placing the lift arms on the vehicle's lift points or a solid space on the frame. What's very important is a wiggle test here to make sure that if the vehicle falls, it is not falling from its max height. This is especially critical anytime you're working with screw jacks, because moving the weight of the vehicle via screw jack can cause the car to become unbalanced and potentially fall. Part of our inspection process is also going to include test fitting up this exhaust to see if this is even feasible. Where we can on our exhaust builds, we typically use V-band flanges, mostly because of their ease of removal once installed. This allows us or the next place that needs to access something in the vehicle to get that off pretty quickly.
Not getting that nice pretty weld I want out of it, but it'll do the job. Because you're welding stainless steel to mild steel that's been blasted, and we have to make new downpipes for the car. We use V-bands here to connect the downpipes to the main exhaust system. It's just a connection point rather than welding it all together and having it be one big huge piece.
Here you see Billy removing the tape from the back purging setup. Now this is going to be especially critical to have the exhaust gases full in the area that he's welding when we're trying to get stainless steel to cleanly meet up to mild steel, as in these boom tubes that were brought to us.
Let that bad boy cool down for a little while. Don't want to burn my little hands.
These particular style mufflers are called boom tubes. Because they are in a race car, you might think that they're going to be the highest, most premium quality materials. These are actually mild steel. We typically weld stainless steel. Why don't they use stainless steel? Well, it comes down to cost and ability to get these things in and out of the vehicle. Typically, their placement on the car allows them to take some damage. They're very low to the ground. And if you can get them doing the same thing and do it with the least amount of cost, that is always going to be the best option to go. These things typically last 2 to 3 races before they're thrown out again. And while our builds exclusively use stainless steel, we took this one on because of the cool factor. Now, just because this system already has those big functional MIG welds in place doesn't mean we're going to match them. We only do things one way, and that's the best of our ability. And that being said, our welds are going to look a little nicer than what's on here. To do that, we need to make sure the fitment and metal prep is on point. We don't want the thing that fails to be our welds. We want the system to look as good as it possibly can. Anything that comes in this shop, form, fitment, and function is always the top of our concerns. As you'll see, Billy's prep work here is pretty thorough. Having a good looking TIG weld means you are getting that gap between the two pieces of metal you're intending to weld as tight as possible. If you've got to cut it back apart, if you've got to shave it, if you've got to squeeze it, if you got to bend it, if you got to do anything you can to get those two pieces of metal together, that's just going to mean the weld is going to turn out that much better. So prep is king when it comes to laying a good bead. Measure twice, cut once. That's the name of the game here. This exhaust might go in and out of the car 20, 30, 40 times to get a good fitment and get the welds that much closer, that much better. And that is why we just don't even attempt to compete with off-the-shelf aftermarket exhaust systems. Our stuff takes a lot longer. Anytime you're doing something one-off, it's just a labor of love. We love doing this. We love the products that come out. We love doing unique builds like this. So we don't mind if it's taking extra time, but we've got to make sure that we think that it's worth putting the extra time and effort into. Now, boom tubes are basically sheet metal encasements of various baffles at different angles. Now, the choice for using boom tubes on NASCAR comes primarily from the fact that they are low to the ground and they get the exhaust out and away from the vehicle without having to go all the way to the back, creating extra weight. So that means they got to be compact. They have to be low in profile. On a tube frame car, that works, but when you're putting something like this on a car with a chassis, that creates a lot of obstacles.
So I can do this one of two ways. I want to make some kind of a plate that comes up and over and grabs these two, right? That should be strong enough, shouldn't it? Because it's reinforced on the bottom.
You're not going to have an issue with it tearing down, other than vibration.
Well, we're going to have to figure, we're going to have to,
A hanger.
we're going to have to buy rubber. These are too heavy for like a normal hanger.
Yeah.
It's going to have to go
Or
stainless to
urethane,
stainless.
maybe?
Yeah, something's going to have to go in between it. And then this right here is going to be the second, you can't see it on the other side, but this is the second bolt I'm going to use, is this one right here. So I think it's going to need two hangers because there's no other hanger in this system. What we've got back here and hooking up to the manifolds is what is going to hold this thing up.
What do you think about the height about this thing?
The height,
Yeah.
that's as high up as you're going to get it.
You don't think we could bring it up another half inch?
No, because you're going to lose it on the sides.
Couldn't you kick that, like, you know what I mean, miter this to kick it and keep that level?
So, well, yeah, but the more level we bring this down, the more we bring this point down. I don't want to bring this down anymore.
Wouldn't you think that bringing this down would be better than having a low-hanging, you know what I mean? Like the angle,
I'm gonna
having this not be straight. So let's say you cut this back off
Yeah.
and you just put a kick in that. I just think it's a little low. And I know there's not much you can do with it, but I think there is a little.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to do anything with it, I'd rather move the whole thing back more and bring it up higher to where there's clearance. That's why I cut this flat off already, was to see, because I can go further back with it. But the thing is, you can only go so much further back because of the angle of this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we just keep chopping.
Well, no. What you're going to do is you're going to keep cutting the angle, and it's going to keep bringing it further and further in.
But we have to bring it back.
I know.
So bring it back, chop more. You know what I mean? I just think we can do a better job tucking it up.
If I bring it back another half inch, I can get it almost all the way into that aluminum.
I think it makes a big difference, especially from this side.
Bringing it back more? Okay. All right, so coming back another half inch on one top of what we have right there, that's the max we'll be able to go up with it.
I think that's way better. Like from the side, it looks like it's supposed to be on there now.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that's the better route.
Yeah,
I would say if you got to come back, I'm better with that than it hanging where it was. And not that that was bad, but like, you know, anytime we have that thing where we're dealing with it, like you can always see it from the side of the car.
Oh yeah.
You know, this I don't think you will, other than the pipes, which is probably what he's after. So, all right, I'm happier with this if that's cool.
That's fine with me. All right, so you're thinking that these will be okay as hangers, and we need to get it's 1/4 inch. It's that really it's that rubber that they use on like conveyor belts.
Okay.
And then you just bolt it up. So you put a washer, the piece of rubber, that up, and then just bolt it on.
So while a tube frame chassis and fiberglass body paneling can accommodate pipes like these, A vehicle with a unibody chassis makes it a little bit more difficult to get these out in a way that doesn't have them look like they're just hanging there or sticking out the sides. So once we have the layout for where this exhaust is roughly coming out, we can move on to the mounting of the exhaust system, as well as any final aesthetic touches to get this thing to look like it's supposed to be in the car. Now, exhaust mounts need to be able to handle a few different purposes, not just allowing the weight of the exhaust to be supported by the vehicle. They need to allow for thermal expansion, as well as minimize vibration into the cabin, because typically they're attached to the engine and the engine mounting structure. But if they're attached directly to the vehicle, that engine vibration will then be translated to the vehicle. Now, on a race car, in-cabin vibrations from the engine aren't typically a big concern, but being that this is still a passenger vehicle, we need to be fairly conscious about that. However, because of the volume that this system will inherently have, we don't have to be as conscious of it, because it's going to be really hard getting over just how loud this vehicle is about to be. So we're going to use a mount that basically sandwiches a piece of dampening material between itself and the frame. Not the best way to make an engine mount, or a way that we make on some of our luxury or more exotic builds, but something that's going to be relatively simple and strong, especially when considering its use on this particular vehicle. Boxing these pieces in for the mount will allow the exhaust to expand and contract while keeping them from bending and keeping strength in the system, keeping everything nice and tight into the body of the vehicle over the life of this exhaust system. Our systems are exclusively made from stainless steel. However, this project kind of piqued our interest, getting real NASCAR style boom tubes on a vehicle. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be using mild steel all the way through. Anything else we had to make to connect this or mount this thing up is being made out of stainless. That way we can ensure our work and guarantee our work, not just the pipes that are going on the vehicle. So that way we know anything that was done is done to the best of our ability, is going to look the way that we expect things to look, is going to perform the way we expect things to perform, and will last with expectations of the customer and our own expectations and adherence to quality. Now, the factory O2 sensors go behind the catalytic converters, which are near the manifolds. So we're going to need to make bungs to go into these pipes that allow the system to mount up. We don't really want to change any of the factory emission systems, so extra accommodations need to be taken to mount these sensors correctly in a way that doesn't affect the engine system's monitoring of the catalytic converters. So they'll be put as close as we can get them. Now, we can't stress how challenging getting a vehicle with a road-going chassis to fit this exhaust that was originally built for a tube frame race car. So you could imagine that a lot of fitting, a lot of chopping, a lot of removing things, test fitting, taking the exhaust down, putting it back up was required, and it really challenged Billy's abilities. But we wanted this thing to look like it wasn't an afterthought, and it belonged on this vehicle from the get-go. So it really just required a little bit more patience and a little bit more effort to get this thing to look like it wasn't an afterthought and actually belonged on this car. A protective thermal powder coating was necessary on this exhaust because of its mild steel nature and its ability to corrode.
Okay, so here we are about 26 hours later with the completed exhaust system on the Mustang. And we ran into a couple of issues along the way with the width of it. Found out that obviously this has been hit at some point, probably when a race car scraped the wall or got into a crash. So we had to overcome this and height differences, but we were able to do all that. Got it set right, exactly where we wanted it, cut the tips off to match the rocker lines on the car. once it was built, that was kind of one of the last things we did, just to make sure that we could match them up perfectly on both sides. So after we shortened the NASCAR boom tubes, cut the sides, then we had to figure out a way to get them back to the manifolds on the car. This is where we used the 304 stainless steel with the V-bands. Basically, we had to completely remake these parts, put V-bands on from the NASCAR system to be able to hook up to our stock system. And this is the completed project after about 26 hours of figuring out. One of the big problems that I had on this car was the mounts and how the exhaust system mounted on the car. You can't use stock rubber hangers to be able to mount this exhaust system on the car. It's too heavy, and it'll just pull the rubber apart, and it'll start hanging down. So basically what we had to do, like they do on a true race car, is we had to make our own mounts. This exhaust system originally came with the mounts on it that would bolt to the bottom of the chassis. We could not use those, as a race car chassis is specifically designed for this to be slammed up against it. Well, we're fighting body lines, panels under the car. So what I had to do was cut the stock ones off, or cut the NASCAR ones off, and basically remake all the hangers. And it was kind of nice on the bottom of this car because we found different mounting points under the car that were already available to us. So we fabricated those up. We're able to hang this exhaust system fairly, I say easy, but time consuming. That was probably the biggest obstacle that we overcame that we thought was going to be a problem. So, and that's it. This is the completed exhaust system. You're all going to hear it here in a minute. It sounds really good. I've already heard it. So enjoy.
Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on upcoming projects. We'll see you in the next one.